Somalis in Minnesota were just caught for committing their largest welfare frauds, and yet this fraud is so massive, Donald Trump is being forced to step in and address it. Not only did they steal it in the most egregious way possible, but it was uncovered that they were using the stolen taxpayer money to fund an Islamic terrorist group back in Somalia. As always, like the video and subscribe to the channel. You're going to want to stick around for this, but let's start by hearing from the ringleader in all of this, sitting United States Congresswoman Ilhan Omar.
oo Congress-ka Mareykanka ku jirto laakiin waxaan ahay gabar Soomaaliyeed gabar idinku jinsi ah gabar idinku af ah gabar idinku diin ah oo ahade qof iyadoo da'yar wadankeedii laga kaxeeyay wili xiisa u qabto in maalin wadankeedii ay ku noolaato oo dadkeedii wax ay la wadaagto marka alxamdulillah waxaan rajaynayaa aniga iyo ilmahayga in aan hade ku barbaariyo iyagana ilmahooda ay ku barbaariyaan dhulkii aniga aan ku soo koray taasna hadii ay suurtagelayso waa hada shaqo badan inaan wada qabanaa hadii Ilaahay yiraahdo.
I don't think it's a coincidence that a United States Congresswoman frequently and openly admits she does not view herself as an American, but a Somalian. She's furious and resentful that she was brought here. She misses it. She loves it. She wants to move back there again. She wants to raise her children and grandchildren there. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done first to make it more stable and prosperous. Is connected to every major Somali fraud ring that is robbing the Minnesota and federal taxpayer. We willingly allowed an entire diaspora of people whose culture is predicated on corruption, violence, and piracy to come settle in the United States. And now the very first generation of kids they have here, who are U.S. citizens, are engaging in the same behavior that made Somalia unlivable. They're the most welfare-dependent immigrant group in the United States. They were already caught stealing $300 million in COVID relief funding that was meant for hungry children with the help of a self-hating white liberal lady. But take a look at their latest scheme, the largest one yet. This clip's a little long, but by the end of it, your jaw is going to be on the floor.
A new, stunning report from the City Journal showing a massive fraud scheme in Minnesota. You have to hear about this. It involves false autism claims, the Somali community, and connections to a terror group. Let's explain over at the wall. Now, it all revolves around Autism and HSS program. That is Minnesota's Medicaid Housing Stabilization Services. Now, this was created to help seniors, addicts, and others find housing, but the criteria to enter this program was incredibly loose and therefore easy to take advantage of. It's led to fraud and costs absolutely exploding. Just 5 years ago, in 2020, costs for this program were $2.6 million. 4 years later, by 2024, costs had been over $100 million, 104. Through the first 6 months of this year, costs are at $61 million, meaning if you double that over the entirety of the year, you're looking at $122 million. In 5 years, from $2 million to $122 million. Now, why? 6 people are accused of defrauding HSS, and they're members of the Somali community. But this just gets worse. If we take a look at Minnesota's federally funded autism program. Now, several people, and this is an example, a woman in the Somali community are co-conspirators, and they're accused for autism therapy. They brought in families, had them convinced to get their kids diagnosed as autistic. In fact, these families ultimately ended up having various social services bid for their children, competing with the size of check that they would get. It didn't matter if the kids had autism. And what happened? Autism claims to Medicaid surged. In 2018, $3 million. By 2023, listen here, from $3 million to $400 million. Autism providers jumped from 41 to 328 in 5 years. Now, City Journal reports that the Somali fraud rings send a lot of money back to Somalia. 40% of households in Somalia get remittances from abroad. That totals $1.7 billion. That is more than the entire budget of the Somali government. Money being sent abroad, from abroad, back to Somalia. Where is that money going? Take a look at this. Most alarmingly, a lot of that money is funneled through money traders, and in the end, ends up in the hands of al-Qaeda-linked Islamic terror group Al-Shabaab. So to bring this full circle, the Minnesota taxpayers are funneling money through fraudulent autism claims back to Somalia, where that money lands in the accounts of Al-Shabaab.
So not only are they unscrupulous enough to steal money allocated for hungry children, but they'll steal money allocated for children with mental disabilities. We are importing people into this country from places that absolutely despise us, who take advantage of our kindness, our generosity, our willingness to help, our social safety nets designed to protect people in need, and then scam, rob, and defraud them for everything they can. Because as Ilhan Omar stated, it doesn't matter that they live here. It doesn't matter that we make them citizens. They are Somalis, and the same cultural priorities and preferences that led to the destruction of Somalia are now leading to the destruction of Minnesota. But would you be surprised if I told you that this level of Somali corruption in Minnesota isn't a recent occurrence? Here is news footage from the early 2000s of Somali businesses in Minnesota being raided by the FBI for being money laundering fronts for Al-Qaeda.
At Cedar and Riverside, 2 businesses shut down, their assets seized, and a suspect hauled away. That suspect may be Garad Jama, the only Twin Cities individual targeted by customs agents in the raid. Jama's last known address, this apartment complex at 2100 Bloomington Avenue South in Minneapolis. A block away from the first raid, 2 more businesses raided and shut down. At both locations, a steady stream of Somali refugees hoping to wire money home to their families turned away.
Business is shut down right now.
And at both locations, boxes of material seized, including a safe and a filing cabinet. Customs agents believe all 4 businesses are involved in funneling money to Osama bin Laden's Al-Qaeda terrorist network.
It is not racist to take an honest look at the world and realize we are not the good guys in the eyes of every country or culture, and conclude from that objective fact that it's not in our best interest to import these people into our country by the hundreds of thousands. Tell them assimilating is racist. Encourage them to keep their same culture, and then be surprised when the same problems that occurred from where they fled from start occurring here. Also, pretentious liberals can pat themselves on the back and brag about how inclusive they are, and that they're more tolerant and virtuous than everybody because they accept all cultures and customs no matter what, even the most vile and repugnant ones, even the ones whose ideologies are centered around the destruction of our way of life. A Somali immigrant was recently arrested for sexually assaulting a child, and his mosque subsequently sent a letter to the prosecutor begging for her leniency, her forgiveness, her understanding, stating the man didn't know what he was doing wrong because of cultural barriers and differences. Why are we importing people into our country who culturally don't understand that being a child predator is bad? Why are we tolerating this insane progressive social justice experiment with our country? They think the concept of bad people doesn't exist. Every person is just misunderstood, and if they get dropped in America, given infinite free welfare, while not changing the root cause of their flaws, which is the culture, they'll just miraculously turn into this upstanding citizen. But this latest fraud was so massive that Donald Trump hit his breaking point, signing an executive order ending all temporary protective status for Somalis in Minnesota.
President Donald Trump posting on Truth Social that he will terminate the temporary protected status for Somalis in Minnesota. In his post, he says the reason is, quote, Minnesota, under Governor Walz, is a hub of fraudulent money laundering activity. I am, as the President of the United States, hereby terminating, effective immediately, the temporary protected status TPS program for Somalis in Minnesota. Somali gangs are terrorizing the people of that great state, and billions of dollars are missing. Send them back to where they came from. It's over, President DJT, end quote. Now, we have reached out to Governor Tim Walz for a comment, but have not heard back tonight. Somalia's protective status currently runs through March 2026. Now, tonight, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar responding to Trump's post on Twitter, saying, I am a citizen and so are majority of Somalis in America. Good luck celebrating a policy change that really doesn't have much impact on the Somalis you love to hate. We are here to stay.
The statement by Ilhan Omar reveals everything wrong with our immigration policy post-World War II. She is rubbing our nose in the fact that they are all citizens because of our wonderful birthright citizenship laws. And there is absolutely nothing we can do to stop their fraud, to stop their abuse of the welfare system, to stop them from electing not to work, having 5 kids, and then receiving $10,000 per month in government benefits, to stop their destruction of the United States from within because they're legally here. She is bragging that the Somali diaspora has successfully scammed the United States system, because that is what the Somali culture celebrates: scamming and corruption. If you can see what their culture leads to when given their own nation, why would you expect it not to lead to the same thing if you put them all in a singular city in Minnesota? She's mocking us by saying you can't deport your way out of this problem. Take a look at what the Somali gangs did in Minnesota during the $300 million Feeding Our Future scam. And it really ties this entire thing together.
We have new details on a jury tampering scheme at the center of a major fraud case. Federal prosecutors indicted 5 people for their roles in offering a juror $120,000 for a not guilty verdict in the Feeding Our Future fraud scheme. The U.S. attorney says the group targeted juror 52 because she was the youngest juror and appeared to be the only juror of color. According to court documents, they dug up information on her family online and even put a GPS tracking device on her car to track her whereabouts. During their investigation, investigators uncovered a video of one of the defendants leaving a bag of money at the juror's home. You may recall the juror came forward with the bribe, and 5 of the 7 defendants were found guilty of fraud. They were convicted for stealing millions of dollars from the government meant to feed hungry kids during the pandemic.
Tracking people, witness tampering, bribery, bags of cash. The entire Somali community in Minnesota is one big crime racket. They use their businesses for fronts. They put politicians in places cover. They create policies that funnel taxpayer money into the pockets of Somalis. They then turn around and send that money back to Somalia to fund Islamic terrorism against America. And even after all of this, here is the Minneapolis police chief apologizing to the Somali community if they feel singled out and targeted by all of these fraud investigations. Oh yeah, and he has a Somali translator. Take a look.
community hadda caruurteena inaan garab istaagno chiefkana waa u baahannahay annagana waa isku baahannahay
Ashano kamid ah odayaasha community Soomaaliyeed iyo waalidiinta magaaladan degan ilmaha ku koriyay.
The Somali community here in Minneapolis has been welcoming and has shown love towards me, and I appreciate it. Over the last 3 years, we have been working together to try and address some of the real serious problems that we have in our community. We have to be honest at times with the problems that we're having in our community, and we need our community to help us fix those problems together because it's real and it's serious. At the same time, if people have taken anything that I have said out of context in a way that's caused harm, I apologize, and I'm sorry for that because that's not my intention at all.
That was the police chief symbolically saying, this is your city. This is your state. We're sorry that the big bad federal government is coming in here and disrupting your fraud schemes. Our liberal white guilt precludes us to accept your massive fraud of taxpayer services intended to help children. And we're sorry that the bad racist federal government is singling you out and holding you accountable. And he's forced to have a translator because how dare you expect people in America to speak English? This is their city, and the police chief is at fault for not knowing their language. They believe the burden of assimilation is on Americans to integrate into their way of life, not the other way around. They're forced to perpetuate this delusion because to do otherwise would be to admit that their ideology that there aren't good cultures and bad cultures, but all cultures are different and equally as special is flawed and wrong, and they would no longer to be able to pat themselves on the back for being the kind of person who believes no human being is illegal on stolen land. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Turn on those notification bells so you never miss